Alright guys, welcome back to the Minds Unlimited Media channel, and we are giving you the Minds Unlimited podcast recap of the week.
So what's going on? This week's podcast was titled Grace versus
Grind. And
like we always do in Minds Unlimited fashion, we're going to kick this thing off with the definitions, led by the queen of definitions herself, Just Z. So what we got? Which word we got first, and what's the def?
Okay, so I'll start with the definition of grace. So what we're using as the definition of grace when we talk about it today is elegance or beauty of form, manner, motion, or action. Okay?
Okay.
And then the one that we have for grind is to wear down, polish, or sharpen by friction.
So on this week, we kind of discussed how each one of these are usually used in opposition of each other. There are a lot of people that call themselves grinders, right?
Yeah.
That say that they work tirelessly to get at whatever goal that they have. And then there's those people that operate out of the sense of like grace, that flow with what they do. So let's take one of these and kind of like recap what we talked about and discuss some things with you today.
Okay, so I'll start with grace. So grace can have different meaning based on where you come from, how you grew up, your spirituality, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But it's really can be taken as like a general thing, a general, like the definition said, elegance in the delivery or the motion of your purpose and of your journey. It can also be, so that's like the thing, right? The noun. But it can also be a verb to show grace or have grace, meaning like to have that flow, right? Mm-hmm. People say you're graceful, to show yourself that maybe like kind of a forgiveness kind of thing. Grace is in like leniency. So that's another way to think about grace.
Mm-hmm. And I know as far as grind, like I mentioned, that tirelessly working, getting at something, but grinding, if you think about it, sometimes has a negative connotation. When something grinds against something else, it is deforming both parties, right?
Correct.
So it's like draining one side to another. Now, this is beneficial when you are grinding for a reason, right?
Yes.
Or gearing at something for a reason. But as we look at grace and grind, let's take this motion of doing, kind of like the thinker versus doer. Like we said before, just doing things without reason is kind of tiring, right?
Yeah.
Grinding without a direction can also be tiring, because literally the definition says that something is withering away, whether it's whatever you're attacking and or yourself.
There's two parts of that definition. Let me pull it back up. There's two parts of that definition that are opposing. So the first one is to wear down. So if you are an infinite grinder and you don't have an end in sight or a final destination, then you're going to be completely worn down.
Most definitely.
Just for the sake of grinding. And then the next word right after wear down is polish. So on the opposite end of that, you can come out of the grind polished and shiny and where you want to be.
Absolutely.
But you have to know when to stop.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing. And then the last part is to sharpen by friction, which is the grind. Mm-hmm. And friction doesn't have to be physical friction. It can be mental friction. It can be you going through a tough situation, you battling something that you have in your mind, something that's on your spirit. You know, it can be all of those things.
And when we think of that grind and iron sharpens iron, the weapon that comes to my mind is a sword, right? And any people out there that are true swordsmen or swords ladies, if you will, know that when you sharpen your blade and you go against an opponent, you don't want to hit your blade directly against theirs. that's actually a myth because the guy will ruin your blade, right?
Yeah.
So there is a graceful way that you even handle swordsmanship. And a lot of swordsmen actually practice a form of grace or calligraphy as well because it's a balance of the two.
Correct.
So we're suggesting that grind isn't bad by itself, nor is grace a bad thing. But without a balance of a common goal or a purpose, you will tend to either be out of whack and feel like you don't get anything done, like people are taking you as being too soft, or you'll be grinding so much that you become exhausted and never find a recharge.
Yeah, that's deep. That's really deep. So let's give the people some examples. So what is grace? Grace is being elegant in the motion of your process.
Okay, most definitely.
Grace is not.
I would say grace is not just being soft or just allowing. A lot of people think that when you're graceful that you just forgive everything. That is more of the forgiving guy than it is a motion or power. Grace is a form of power. How do we know this? Look at parents. Look at people that you love. Sometimes, without reason, somebody might have done something wrong, but what empowers you to get further or to get past that, a lot of times is grace. Right?
Yeah.
And like I hinted at, being graceful does not mean that you're soft. In fact, the word soft, I think, has a negative connotation because we think that soft means weak, and it doesn't. Any of my fellow friends that practice in the world of Kung Fu know that there's a soft forms that are very deadly, and then there are hard forms that can be very deadly. And in fact, this symbol, if you know what you know, means the balance of both, right? So being graceful doesn't mean that you're soft. Being graceful actually means that you're in a groove with your grind.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I like that. I like how you put them together.
Well, you know.
Okay, so that means, grind is
a practice, I would say.
Okay. Yes. Grind is a balanced practice.
Most definitely.
Maybe a graceful practice.
Hopefully so. Or else you burn out.
Okay. And then grind is not. So grind is not an infinite struggle to no end.
Absolutely.
Yeah, grind is not a state of being.
Nice.
Grind
Nice.
is not purposeless.
Right. Because you can do something over and over again and call it your grind. But what you're really referring to and what you're trying to tell people is that you're driven. Oh, I'm on my grind, aka, oh, I'm focused. Focused at what? Focused at nothing. That means you're not focused at anything, my friend. You're not on the grind. You're just moving.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. If we're talking about like a sword, for instance, you have to get the timing right. You have to get the pressure right. You have to get the end point right. Do you want it to be, how dull or sharp do you want it to be? So you have to have all these things in mind when you are grinding so that you are being efficient in that, and B, know that you are going for the final destination you're trying to get to. So yeah, I want to make sure that we know what grind is and what it is not, and what grace is and what it is not.
Indeed. I can tell you that neither side of this is easy. It is hard being graceful because you have to follow certain rules in order to maintain grace.
Correct.
So in other words, you have to grind at being graceful. It is hard to grind unless you have a rhythm and a purpose, aka your grace, your amplification of what is in you. I think that that's another thing that we covered in this week's podcast, is that grace has this undertone of not being this external thing necessarily, but also being like whatever is naturally in you, amplify. And you will do it with your own rhythm, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. I think that people feel like grind is something that's so external that it's like, yeah, everybody's going to see my grind. Everybody's going to have me be on my grind or see that I'm grinding. And that's, if I'm sitting still, I'm not grinding, right? And that is not not the case all the time. And grace, if you said, how do you show grace? People would just be like, I don't know. But then if you ask somebody, how do you grind? Then you got 1,000,008 answers, 1,000,008 books, 1,000,008 pages on Instagram about it.
And at the end of the day, like Jesse said, it is a process. You can't cheat the process. No matter if you started off and say, well, I want to get grinding done right first. You're going to accidentally work on grace. And even if you start off, I want to work on my grace first. But you're going to accidentally figure out how to grind in your grace. So you can't have one without the other if you're going to master one of them. To master one, you actually need the other. So, with that said, what is your process? What do you identify as? Do you identify more as being a grinder? Or do you identify more as being a person of grace? Leave a comment in the comment section below to let us know. I know for me, I thought I was a grinder. But come to find out after this conversation, it's a little bit of both.
I know I am definitely a grace type of person. I am not a grinder by any
So she thinks.
any means. I don't feel like I'm a grinder at all because I've never been that person that's been like, yeah, I'm gonna, keep working and keep struggling and keep pushing just because. Like, I feel like if I'm doing work, it's towards something. If I'm not out here trying to make millions and billions and be on the grind to do that. Like, that's not the type of person
I like that you put that
I
way.
am.
Because I do believe that there are people that will exclude themselves from being one or the other for an external response. So kind of what you have shown me is that it is okay to be whatever one that you are for yourself.
Please hang up and try again.
Oh yes, because people will say, oh, because you've been in the same apartment with the same car in the same job forever long, all of a sudden you're not a grinder, right? To grind, you gotta be elevating. You gotta be, working to be the first millionaire in your family. If that's what you want to do, great. But sometimes if you are in your same job, in your same car, in your same home, and you have elevated your mental state and grinded on that, or you have elevated your health and grinded on that, you don't get the same response. But do it for you. Do your own grind. Show yourself grace. Know that the flow of your process is the grace that you need, not anybody else.
Indeed. Because at the end of the day, if you don't show them, it doesn't matter. Right? So, give us a thumbs up on that one. Grind for yourself. Be graceful for yourself. For those that are around you that need to see it, they'll know.
All right. I know we gave y'all a lot, but at least for me, this is something that I'm passionate about because both these words get such a bad rep. So, feel free to hit us up on our social media pages, our Instagrams. Hit me up. Hit Dr. J. Duncan up if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, prayers,
and or wishes.
Also, check us out on our website, www.mindsunlimited.com. Feel free to let us know any topics that you want to hear, anything you want us to discuss. If you want to even talk about what we talked about on here, drop a comment or hit us up.
Indeed. And if you like what you heard today and want to hear the full conversation, go to the Minds Unlimited podcast page. We are on almost every podcast platform.
Anchor, Apple Podcasts.
Indeed. Spotify, Pandora. So wherever you go, you can even go to Google and type in Minds Unlimited Podcast and we should pop up. So all the links, descriptions, and all that fun stuff will be found in the description below. And as always,
the smallest change in perspective
can change a life. Peace. Oh, welcome to the Minds Unlimited. What do we call this? Minds Unlimited recap. Yeah, second.
Media channel.